The problem in making a film about yourself is that everybody thinks you're narcissistic. I guess I have to be a little bit. Well, I'm gonna try to not do that, but I realized after a while that my own story was too big not to tell. You see, I'm HIV positive, and I wouldn't have planned that, but it just kind of happened. I found out in 2006, and I spent the next few years being agoraphobic, not leaving my house, thinking I was the only person in New York City with HIV, which we all know, of course, is not the case.
One song.
There was fear, of course. The worst news just came true, right? So, how am I going to be this person? Am I going to be this kind of this outcast, this Hester Prynne type of person? You know, is everybody going to know me as the friend who now has AIDS? What was his name again? Oh, something with a B. You know, I was nervous that I was going to be overwhelmed or consumed by this. That it was, that it would make me lonely. That it would be, that it would make it difficult to find love or to be loved. That it would be sad. That it would just be all kinds of sad. Things didn't start out that way. I mean, I'm quite a gregarious person. Usually I'm quite chatty. I'm a lot of fun at parties. When you first find out you're positive, you try to compartmentalize because it just seems so bizarre, so unreal. You find out these words, I'm positive, and you're like, does that really apply to me? Are those two words now who I am? You wind up compartmentalizing yourself, and you can cut yourself off through isolation, wind up staying in your apartment far more than you should, not going out and meeting other people who are positive too and who can maybe ultimately help you with this so you don't become isolated. As Albert Camus wrote, I was raised to be a self-loathing queer Catholic. Actually, he wrote that. It's a wearying business being plague-stricken, but it's still more wearying to refuse to be it. That's why everybody in the world today looks so tired. Everyone more or less is sick of the plague. But that's also why some of us who want to get the plague out of our systems feel such desperate weariness. A weariness from which nothing remains to set us free except our deaths.
Find the one song before the virus takes hold, glory like a sunset. One song to redeem this empty life.
I told people for years that I was gay and viewed that as a positive experience. And just when it seemed I got to the end of that long list of people who never seemed to know entirely, all of a sudden I had a new big secret to share with them. Do you know how many of my friends have come over to my house and not eaten off of my dishes? There have been as many plagues as there have been wars in the course of human history. Yet somehow plagues and wars always seem to take society by surprise. Imagine typing the words, I am HIV positive, into your Facebook status. Forgetting for a moment whether you're positive or not, imagine how it would be to have all of your friends, your family, your colleagues, your close acquaintances, and your 10,000 loose acquaintances. How would they all respond? How would that news impact some of the rock-solid relationships in our lives that we take for granted? With our children, with our partners, with our parents, our siblings. Although my life might have changed completely after that status update, how would they respond to the news? Would people like the status update just to acknowledge that they had read it? Would they search around for that proverbial dislike button? Or would they just not respond because they didn't know what to say? And how long would they not respond for? Would they not respond for a few days, weeks, months, years? How long does not responding take to turn into rejection? Would they write some really obtuse comment or try to use humor to smoothen over the situation? A joke that might only work in cyberspace? A weird sort of virtual hug? Would they change the topic? Would they send you articles about HIV and AIDS, trying to take care of your health? Or would they simply just start to avoid you because engaging you on the discourse of HIV and AIDS made them uncomfortable? What's the statute of limitations for blowing me off?
It took people because they hit me anyway, you might as well.
Yeah, hold it. I'll follow you
No,
over.
no.
I do, I'm like.
This is police. This is one of my
Who cares about you? That's nice. Oh, shit, that's in the kitchen. Sometime after posting my HIV positive Facebook status, I befriended Scott Kramer. He runs a group called High Five at the LGBT Community Center. The group is for newly diagnosed and long-term survivors of HIV and AIDS. I had been to similar therapy groups when I had first come out as HIV positive to myself a few years ago, but I kind of wanted to go and see what Scott was doing with the boys, just to sort of see, how, if not things had changed, how I had changed.
They tried to make me go to rehab, I said.
So my name is Scott Kramer. I'm a psychotherapist in private practice here in the West Village in New York City. And I see individuals, couples, and groups. And that can be around anything that's going on in terms of safer sex, dating, addiction, relationships, and we can talk about HIV. The High Five Support Group is really a group for HIV positive men, gay men living in New York City. And usually we have about 15 people or so each week. The reason I started the group was because when I was diagnosed in 1995, I went to a group called Young, Gay, and HIV Positive. And that group really saved my life. It was amazing and wonderful in so many different ways. And it was actually held right across the lobby here in the center. And I met so many great people and was able to really figure out how to accept my status as a gay man living with HIV. And we would go out to dinner afterwards. It was fantastic. And so all these years later, I became a social worker, and I decided that I wanted to give back to the community, and I wanted to be able to form that community. And so I said, let me start a group.
Like my only light, and it's like, and it's just seeing, and I don't know how to express it. It's a calming place where it's more than therapy. It's like, because we all have our own issues as well, but the issue here, it's just a great way for me to open up, and it helps every other aspect of my life, basically, because this is one big thing that's preventing me from living my life right now. Right. Isolation and everything you guys say. I go back home and I was like, oh shit, I do that too. It's like
keeping secrets. Keeping secrets of being gay, or being HIV, MC, and I can't do it anymore. Hiding the pills, like I was saying earlier, family would come over and I'd hide the pills from my medicine closet. My own house, that would really make me. Then I said no more. Yeah. If someone comes to my house, that's my house. I'm not going anymore. So that freed me. Great. Yeah. When I told my sister, it was heartfelt and I cried. I cry because I'm crying now. Because I was able to tell somebody. I had to keep it all to myself. It's too hard to keep all that stuff to yourself. When you're closeted, I thought first I was closeted because I was gay. Then I started coming out mad. Then I got HIV and was closeted again. It was it was so hard. It was just so negative. So just saying it out loud was joyful and relief. Those reminded me that's where the tears rolled from that. I can tell somebody.
As life went on, she saw me getting thinner and weaker because I wasn't taking medication, and it destroys her life, you know, other people's lives also. And it's good that I told her, whether she wasn't strong enough. I wish she was stronger about it, but it could ruin lives, but it can also help lives. You know?
In this world, there are plagues and there are victims. And it's up to us, the healers, so far as possible, not to join forces with the plagues. Camus said, "What's true of all evils in the world is true of the plague as well. It helps men to rise above themselves." Plagues are so big that we can't even imagine their scope. We wind up telling ourselves that they're just boogeymen in our minds, bad dreams that will pass and go away. But they don't always pass and go away, and from one bad dream to another, it's people who pass away. Of course, somebody might suffer a long time without knowing it, but you don't need to be happy to make a new start. HIV positive people can create their own sense of isolation. Sometimes when we're trying to not be isolated, we can try to approach our friends or family with a certain degree of success or failure. I've had certain family members respond to it better than others. It was perhaps even before the diagnosis that there was the fear of being lonely in the first place that maybe led somebody to want to be closer, to be more intimate with a person that was, if not monogamous, pretty monogamous. And however correct or incorrect a choice that was, to, after several years of being together, to not use condoms, to want to experience that intimacy that had seemed like such a great idea at the time. Ironically, it was the quest for intimacy to avoid isolation that renders one into an isolating situation. Scott runs a great group, and I really love the men in it. But there comes a point when all of the therapy in the world isn't going to help, and you kind of just have to go back out into the world and see how you can interact with it as this newfound positive personality. Sometimes it doesn't matter at all whether such things have a meaning or not. All we have to do is consider whether or not they provide hope. Even before I was diagnosed as HIV positive, the Eagle had always been one of my favorite bars to go to. It has a remarkable lack of attitude given its New York location. While clearly not all the customers who go to the Eagle are HIV positive, the Eagle has a large number of patrons who don't mind being upfront about their status, which makes it sort of a comfortable place to go and hang out, even if you just want to go and grab a beer and have a bit of an authentic conversation with somebody who might be in your boots. They're big into Levi's, leather.
I can say one thing about the Eagle. This bar is welcoming to all. It is. You may have other bars in the city where everybody has a little clique, the Chelsea Queens, the Chelsea Muscle Boys. But here, you come as you are, be who you are, and it's okay.
And there's a lot of HIV positive people who feel comfortable about being out about their status here.
Yeah.
I'm positive myself, for example. This is a documentary about HIV and AIDS. Do you have like positive friends? Or?
Yes, I do. I have a number of positive friends. Yeah.
Okay.
My name is Arsenio Amatis, and I am your Mr. Eagle, New York City, 2013. You know, you fall into a depression after you're diagnosed. When I was first diagnosed, it was over 20 years ago. I remember sitting across the doctor saying to me, if you're not going to take any medication, then there is, we have to help you in transitioning. I remember asking, what transitioning to what? And he said, from living to dying. This is where I'm at the Eagle, dressed in leather, have a harness that's shoving up my ass. I'm not comfortable at all. But, you know, I do this because I want to help back the community. So I designed a ribbon, a leather ribbon. The foundation is called Leather Cares. The message is saying, I am HIV positive. I'm alive, and I am going nowhere, bitch. I'm gonna live until there's a cure.
We all love a hot guy in leather talking about HIV and AIDS and safe sex prevention messages and so on. And as hot as I thought Arsenio was, I realized that I myself could be a bit of a superhero too. While I might not look nearly as hot with a leather harness shoved up my ass, I realized that I had powers too. I have a doctorate in international education. I can make documentary films. I have a voice and I have something to say. And not only that, but I'm able to talk to all of these people and use those research skills and ask them all of their stories and put them into this film so that anybody out there watching this can learn from our experiences.
There aren't any differences between us. To me, they're just like anyone else.
Well, come on, that's the pat answer. But like,
no.
What if
That is the answer.
What if your boyfriend said, "Oh, by the way, Pete, I just found out bad news."
I love him any less?
I'm asking.
Absolutely not. The things that we've been through, I mean, it's just about looking out for the other person.
In spite of all the advancements by the LGBT community and marriage equality advocate, gay people largely have to marginalize themselves in spaces where they feel comfortable. Gay bars, for example, won't cease to exist simply because marriage equality will be declared in all 50 states someday. Gay people are always going to need some sort of safe space that they can call their home and feel comfortable in. And the same goes true for HIV positive people until we find a cure. You can find camaraderie in a bar. You can even find other guys who are HIV positive. But it's hard to find love in any bar. When we're kids, the idea of becoming a superhero, having some kind of special powers to escape the humdrum, mundane aspects of our lives seems so appealing and somehow easy to obtain. If only we could find the fountain of youth or the secret power or the magic ring, we'd somehow be cooler than all the other kids. Then we wouldn't get picked on, we wouldn't feel different. We'd be empowered to tell the bullies once and for all, "Hey, I'll see you after school. I know where you live." Those childhood fantasies persist when we become adults, when we realize that Superman isn't coming to save us, and that there's no knight on a white horse waiting to solve our problems. We have to be our own healers.
Africa with 5.5 million people, it's a staggering pandemic globally that we can't even begin to understand back home in the real lives of people that it affects and infects. It could happen to me, you.
Having HIV can almost be like having a superpower, because ultimately it's something that you have to live with, often in secret, and you have to live with great responsibility to make sure that you protect other people.
You, any single person on this ride, any person watching this video, not only...
At a certain point you realize you have more to lose by staying in the closet than you have to gain. You stay in and it might protect certain relationships or jobs or something, but ultimately you're living an inauthentic life. And you're not being authentic with the people that you love and need most, for example, in an HIV diagnosis. If nobody's speaking up for me, at least I've got to speak up for myself. And I think this is the moment when you realize that nobody may be speaking up for me but me. So it's time to start advocating, or, silence will equal my death. HIV is going to be something that's going to be with me for a long time, or until they find a cure. And at this rate, I can't really put all my eggs in that basket. So I'll still keep looking for answers in places like South Africa, the LGBT Center, and the Eagle, because that's where my HIV positive brothers and sisters are hanging out. Anyone in a uniform can be a superhero. All it takes are a few costume changes. You can go from wearing a white t-shirt to wearing a black one that says silence equals death and a big pink triangle in the middle of it. You don't need to look good in spandex. People always wonder why I bother cycling at all, or cycling AIDS Rights South Africa. They don't see a connection sometimes between my work in South Africa and the HIV and AIDS epidemic in New York City. There's more people with HIV and AIDS in South Africa than there are anywhere in the world. By cycling South Africa each year, I remind myself that I'm surrounded by the world's largest HIV positive population. I know when I'm back in New York that strength that I feel when I'm in those numbers keeps me sane, keeps me balanced, lets me do my work here in New York City, focus on my films, my teaching, and my research, so that once a year I can do something proactive on a bicycle. And I'll keep doing that as long as I'm able to pedal. While many people continue to struggle to figure out how they're going to live with HIV, there are some people for whom that's no longer a concern. They've already decided that they're HIV positive, and they're making a proud new life going forward. When I know that there's work to be done, and that telling somebody my story about being HIV positive might protect even one person from living the same life I currently do, then I realize I have to tell my story again. As Camus writes, at the end of the plague, the doctor resolved to compile this chronicle, so that he should not be one of those who hold their peace, but should bear witness in favor of those plague-stricken people, so that some memorial of the injustice and outrage done them might endure. I have no idea what's waiting for me or what it means if HIV and AIDS ends. All I know is that there are people out there who need help.
Of war isn't peace, it's creation. Viva la vie!